I cannot stand Bill Maher. This guy has an unearned reputation as a lefty. And if you're a fan of Bill Maher and you're a fan of this channel, let me tell you there's some contradiction. I don't want you to stop being a fan of this channel, but I want to point out to you that the things that would make you a fan of this channel should make you dislike Bill Maher intensely. Now, just to be clear, this guy cut his teeth seemingly being on the side of the angels. But make no mistake, he has always been neoliberal scum. He has fallen for the same things that let America slide farther and farther right. And when he does pick up the culture war, it is always on the side of anything that doesn't interfere with billionaires making money. To give you a little sense of what he's up to these days, he's an anti-vaxxer. But I saw the first 30 seconds of an interview this little punk did with CNN. I got infuriated immediately. I'd like to share that with you, and then pause it from time to time just to tell you why I think this guy's trash. Here we go.
All right, ahead, Bill Maher, a man with a long history of amusing and, sometimes offending both ends of the political spectrum.
Yeah, they're already doing that cover for him. Oh, both ends of the spectrum. He sometimes offends them. No, he sometimes says dumb stuff.
He sat down with our very own Jake Tapper for their special. It airs tonight, 9 o'clock Eastern on CNN. Take a look.
Jake Tapper, as I've said before, he will be booted out of the Council of Jakes, if only for having that dumb face.
Do you think Democratic politicians have changed their views, or do you think they're just afraid of their party's activists the way that a lot of Republicans are afraid of their party's activists, the MAGA folks?
B.
Question was, have liberal politicians changed their views, or are they being affected by the people they're supposed to represent? The idea, look at that smug prick, the idea that in this guy's head that it is a bad thing for politicians to reflect the beliefs of the people they represent, that's bad to him. Now, the beef we have with MAGA is that they are falling for conspiracy theories. And then their politicians are playing into those conspiracy theories rather than dealing with the truth. I wonder if he's going to make that argument about lefties, or if he's just going to group them in together, as in group in populists together, and pretend like the group that is educated versus the group that is misinformed are the same. I wonder what he's going to do. Let's find out.
They're afraid, yes.
They're just afraid.
Yes, I think both sides. I think, again, there's 4 tribes, I think, in this country. I think there's old school liberals and old school conservatives, Republicans and Democrats.
We agree on the 4 tribes. I released a video about it yesterday, and I've talked about it in the past. There are indeed 4 tribes, and I think he's going to talk about, where there is agreement. But he's going to leave out what they agree on.
The kind of people who used to, I think that's the majority of the country.
Like Hillary Clinton and Jeb Bush or something.
Yeah, the kind of people who never agreed on a hell of a lot, but they found ways to work together. They didn't hate each other.
Oh, they sure did agree on a hell of a lot, though, Bill Maher. They surely did. You effing shill. Here's what they agreed on. Neoliberalism as their religion. As their founding principle for how to run a country. We tried to push since the 80s. Hell, since before that, since the 60s. We've been trying to push neoliberalism, which is this belief that business can do no wrong. As long as you deregulate business, things go good. That's the belief. It's not true. It doesn't work. In fact, it shows time and time again neoliberal policy constantly leads to fascism. That is the inevitable end path of it every single time. It leads to civil disorder. It leads to a killing of the middle class, which is what we have seen here. And it leads to fascism inevitably, which is what we are currently seeing here. This guy is talking about the good old days when Republicans and Democrats came to an agreement about effing you over. When they could get together in a room, shake hands, agree, listen, hey, you believe in ensuring that black school kids never have an opportunity to rise up. I want to give them a tiny chance to rise up, but let's just agree. We all hate poor people. Yeah, okay, we can agree on that. That's what he's idealizing here.
It wasn't all about making liberal tears and cry and all this stuff and
MAGA.
Owning and destroying people. It was just
MAGA again. What about progressives? What are progressives doing that you stand against, sir?
Yeah, I don't agree with Bob Dole, but we can work together. We can
to F over poor people, sure.
Get a grand bargain, that kind of stuff. And so I think that's the majority, but then you have Trumpers, and then you have wokesters.
Okay, tell me, Bill Maher, what's wrong with the wokesters, other than being insistent that people have human rights?
And, those fringes are not doing this country any.
What makes them a fringe? You're saying these people are forcing their politicians to do things. How are they fringe? Do explain it.
Great favors.
Of course not.
Joining us now is CNN anchor and chief Washington correspondent Jake Tapper. Jake, good morning.
Okay, so just to recap that little snippet they played, Bill Maher said, the fringes are bad, the fringes are progressives and MAGA, and here's why MAGA's bad. Then it was crickets when it came to progressives. Why? Why do they not jump on progressives? Because progressives are right. Progressives are correct. That's simple. You can't argue with them because they are correct. What are you going to argue with the facts? You're going to argue with the tradition, the trajectory that neoliberalism has taken us down? You can't. You don't have that ability. The only way you can have beef with it is to lump them in with a group that they don't belong with. Progressives are the opposite of MAGA in most ways. The one way they're not is that both groups are populist. That's the only similarity. And by the way, we can use that. Both groups are populist. And he is not a populist. He is for the oligarchy. That is what he is idealizing. The Bill Clintons, my God. Bill Clinton were not. That's not something to wish we could go back to. Bill Clinton shaking hands with Bob Dole. Bill Clinton absolutely killing the middle class with his neoliberal policy agenda. We should not be pining for those days at all.
Why'd you want to sit down with him? What's the most fascinating takeaway?
Well, I think he's one of the preeminent political comedians in the country, if not.
I would be interested on whose opinion that is based. Jon Stewart may disagree. So would anybody who's had a job on The Daily Show. This clown.
The most, and obviously he works for HBO Max, our sister channel, so it seemed like a great opportunity to sit down, pick his brain about politics, about comedy, about any number of things that he talks about on Friday nights on his show Real Time. And, it was just an interesting, wide-ranging conversation on a number of topics.
And he's pretty political. He delves into the political issues.
So I just heard. Why'd you want to interview this guy? Well, no reason. He's a famous guy, I guess. Oh, and he's on our sister channel. Okay. What did he have to say of value? Nothing. Just complaining about those damn kids and wanting rights. Fuck yourself, Bill Maher.
He's made big donations, $1 million donations in the past, famously. I know you talked to him about that. What is his take on what we're predicting for 2024? We're just talking about DeSantis, obviously Trump, Biden, his age. What was his view on that?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of topics you just mentioned, and we talked about every one of them. But I think he thinks that it's inevitably.
I'm curious. I haven't seen this. There's 4 minutes left in this clip of theirs. I'm going to leave him with the dumb face because he deserves it. I'm curious to see if Bill Maher did some propping up of DeSantis. One thing the oligarchs love is anybody in the GOP who's not Trump. Now, I hope desperately that Trump is too busy being imprisoned to run for office. But I wonder if Bill Maher has finally gone full right-wing shill and tried to prop up DeSantis. Let's see.
Probably going to be Biden versus Trump, although he's not 100% sure of that. He thinks Biden can defeat Trump. He thinks that the big field of Republican candidates taking on Trump in the Republican primary will likely mean that Trump wins the nomination again. He was not particularly concerned about Biden's age, thinks that he's able to do the job, and he had a lot to say about how most cultures honor their elders and seek advice from them, and that is the way he sees President Biden, although he certainly disagrees with quite a bit that Biden has done.
I got to ask you, Jake, for those of us who are old enough to remember, I mean, Bill Maher got canceled, right? And back in the day, politically incorrect. He got
Don Lemon just wanting to make sure there's life after getting canceled. For the record, what he got canceled for, he said some ugly things about a woman's age. You don't do that. And hopefully he got his wrist slapped and grows up a little bit. Joy Reid over on MSNBC had something similar. I think she learned her lesson, though, went on to do some fine reporting. So, but it's funny to me to seem like Bill Maher got canceled, right? So there's and he came back. So you can come back from that, right?
canceled by the right. And then now he speaks a lot about,
that's right.
About wokeism and being canceled by the left. I mean, this whole Bill.
Don Lemon's got some real interest in making sure it looks bad to be canceled by the left.
Maher arc has been fascinating to watch, and especially his stances on, who's canceling and who's responsible these days.
Out of curiosity, what was Bill Maher canceled over? And by the way, I don't know how you say somebody is canceled if they have a multi-million-dollar deal to do a show for HBO. But no. Bill Maher was an anti-vaxxer. Bill Maher got people killed. The hell with that guy. People are dead because he was a clown. He was irresponsible in front of a camera. Bill Maher deserves goose egg respect. None. Zero. Goose egg. No respect. It's maddening to see this show fawning over an interview with this dude.
Yeah, Politically Incorrect was a show that started in the 90s. It was on Comedy Central. Then it transferred, then it went over to ABC. And it was after the Gulf War had started, the Iraq War had started, rather, and he had made a comment about whether or not people who are suicide bombers or people on planes, sending planes into buildings, whether that is cowardly as opposed to sending missiles out. He was very criticized, as happens, and the Bush White House weighed in. Ari Fleischer said people need to watch what they say, and the Disney-owned ABC canceled him soon after that. I think he would argue that he hasn't changed. It's just that the people doing the canceling have changed, and it used to be more people on the right, and now it's just as many, if not more people on.
I noticed they didn't talk about what the left canceled him for. That's what the right did. Maybe they'll get to it.
The left.
He famously predicted that Trump wouldn't leave the White House, and then, we all saw what played out. Did you guys talk about that?
So did everybody with two eyes, but fair enough.
We did quite a bit. I'm not sure if we have the montage ready of all those clips of him predicting that. Yeah, let's watch that.
I don't see him leaving willingly. I don't see him leaving under any condition, including people knocking on the door with guns. But he'd be Scarface. I don't think he would even leave if he lost an election in 2020. People have been saying I'm an alarmist and I'm crazy because I keep saying he's not going to leave even if he loses. And I will bet you $1 million right now that if you lose the 2020 election,
let me just first of all, credit where he's due. He was saying that, and he was correct about that. Although, as I state, we knew since 2016 that Trump was like this. He wouldn't concede to that election. He wouldn't concede to supporting the winner, regardless of who it was, in that election. Only reason we didn't have that happen was because he won. You could argue not fair, not square, but he did win. However, I just want to point out, he was on there with, who was that? Steve Bannon? Don't forget, here we go.
people knocking on the door with guns. But he'd be Scarface. I don't think he would even leave if he lost an election in 2020. People have been saying I'm an alarmist and I'm crazy because I keep
Look who he's on there with, Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon was joking with a bunch of Chinese, we don't know who, very rich people. Steve Bannon was joking about the fact that Trump was not going, he was going to do exactly what Bill Maher is saying here. So credit where it's due. This guy was right about Trump not leaving the White House. Again, I stress there are better folks who made that prediction as well, including Bernie Sanders in a speech leading up to January 6th. He warned of Trump's toxic behavior.
saying he's not going to leave even if he loses. And I will bet you $1 million right now that if you lose the 2020 election, I'm right and you won't leave. I've been saying for a number of years that if Trump loses the election, he's not
Bernie,
going
all
to
right.
leave. I cannot picture that man gracefully conceding and walking away.
Is that Eric Holder?
Interesting. One of those comments was to Steve Bannon. If you saw there, he was saying that to Steve Bannon. Yeah, I said, how, what made you predict that? And he said, have you been watching Donald Trump? I mean, like he's a guy who doesn't acknowledge ever losing, he never concedes defeat, he never concedes mistake. It was eminently predictable. He didn't think it was difficult to see that coming at all.
It's going to be shocking to some people on a different level. I don't know if you remember this, Jake. I'm sure you do. And I predicted that. I said Donald Trump will probably win the election in 2016. Look, I lost a lot of liberal friends. I actually got kicked out of parties in Brooklyn. They're saying, "What's wrong with-" Oh, my gosh, yes. And I said, have you guys seen the newspaper? The newspapers, he's on every section. He's on the business section. He's on the political section. He's on the real estate section for me. He's in the front pages. It was just because he knew how to manipulate and use the media. And so it's interesting to, see Bill Maher say, hey, listen, this guy isn't going to leave the White House. I think the evidence was there, but people just kind of ignored what's in front of their faces.
Speaking of ignoring, freaking Bill Maher's tendency to go full neoliberal at all times. So why am I harping on this? Why am I trashing Bill Maher? Because bad lefties got us in to the situation we have now. People who were unwilling to look at the actual causes of American suffering allowed it to happen. This religious adherence to neoliberalism needs to get killed in this country. We need to just crush it. And any time somebody who's claiming left cred supports the buddy-buddy arrangement had between, for example, Bill Clinton and Bob Dole. No. They need to be called out And anybody who is on the left who is in any way contributing to Bill Maher still having a career by watching his show should stop doing that, because this guy is trash. When you are, in the near future, hopefully, trying to convert people from corporate Democrat to genuine progressive, lean on that. Lean on the fact that neoliberalism has been an abject failure. Tom Hartman wrote a book on it. It's The Hidden History of Neoliberalism. That is my recommended read. The whole thing in audiobook form is only, like 4 hours? Very doable. Also very enlightening. And it makes it crystal clear where the downfall of this country came from, starting in the 80s when Reagan got to truly run wild with neoliberalism, till now. The entirety of my life, basically, has been watching America slide further and further into a capitalist hellhole. It is an antiquated way of running things. It is old-fashioned, and it does not, I want to underline this, does not work. For example, China, around the same time, was looking at how it was going to build itself up. Following Mao, China had to seriously look at how it was going to build itself up. They were pitched neoliberalism as a way forward. Thank God they didn't listen. They went with Alexander Hamilton's American plan by raising taxes on the rich, reversing free trade, and building a society that works for all. That is what they did, and they are killing us. They have caught up to America in that time, and they will surpass us if we don't get our act together, which means ditching neoliberalism, ditching talking heads like Bill Maher, who either straight up doesn't know what he's talking about, which I assume is the case because he entered the professional world and has been there in the heyday of neoliberalism. Ditching these punks and following a better way. The better way being, as it laid out by Hartman at least, Alexander Hamilton's American plan, which we used until the late 1800s, which in fact meant that we didn't even have an income tax from while following Alexander Hamilton's plan. We didn't have an income tax for the first 100 years this country was in existence, because we didn't need one. That's how much money we made by taxing the rich. Imagine if we could do away with your income tax. You don't pay any income tax because the rich punks have to. Don't listen to people like Maher. If you have friends who consider themselves lefties, their vote is getting poisoned by people like Maher. Push them progressive. Do that by attacking the sources of their misinformation. It's no different than Fox News. F. Bill Maher. Make sure they know that guy's a punk.